Hi, everyone, and welcome to this video from the Texas Commission on the Arts. We have created this series of videos to help students and teachers to help prepare for the Poetry Out Loud competition. My name is Derek Mudd, and I'm a program administrator at the Texas Commission on the Arts, or TCA. TCA is the state agency for arts in Texas, and we conduct the state Poetry Out Loud competition that feeds into the national competition. Today's session is called Text Analysis and Rehearsal Tips from an Actor, and our presenter today is Amalia Ortiz. Amalia appeared on 3 seasons of Russell Simmons Presents Deaf Poetry on HBO, and NBC Latino named her book Rant, Chant, Chisme one of the 10 Great Latino Books of 2015. It won the 2015 Writers League of Texas Poetry Discovery Prize. Amalia spoke at TEDx McAllen in 2015, and she was awarded an Alfredo Cisneros del Moral grant and a writing residency at the National Hispanic Cultural Center. She is a CantoMundo Fellow, a Hedgebrook Writer-in-Residence alumna, and she was the inaugural Performing Artist in Residence at ArtPace in 2018. She was awarded a National Association of Latino Arts and Cultures Fund for the Arts grant to film music videos for her latest book, The Cancion Cannibal Cabaret. Amalia received her MFA in creative writing from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Amalia, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. So let's see where to begin. I'm going to share the screen. I am a performance poet. I actually began writing just attending a poetry slam in San Antonio because I was trained as an actor and I just wanted to be on stage. And so some of the first poems that I wrote, I approached as writing monologues. And what I want to share with you today is what any trained actor does when they're given a script, how they break it down to make it sound, specifically with acting in verse, to make it sound conversational. And so the information, the tips I'm sharing come from various classes I took as an undergraduate when I was working on my bachelor's in theater. And so one of the classes I took was actual acting in verse, and we focused on how to break down Shakespeare, Moliere, the Greek classics, which are all plays written in verse. And I think specifically Shakespeare, there's that rhyme in there. How do you break out of that to make it sound like a human being who is talking and speaking from a real human point of view, as opposed to a person reading something that sounds really very much like rhyming verse. So the first thing we do, let's look at what is monotone. So I've seen some of my favorite writers, and it's been disappointing when they sound very monotone, and that can either be with volume, that they're not speaking very loud and they're not really varying the inflection. And so it's unchanging pitch without intonation or expressiveness. And I'm sure we've all gone to poetry readings where someone is reading like this, and it can sound a little bit like a machine, a robot. And so we want to break out of that. But one of the things I'll talk about later is monotone is repeating a pitch. And so even if you are very impassioned and you give every word that energy and the same pitch, this can become monotone. And within 5 minutes, you will be, as a listener, your ear will begin to zone out. And so what we want to do is we want to vary our pitch and speed, all of this, like as though we are speaking, because when we're speaking, we're giving different words, different weight, different intonation. So if you look at it as musical notes, there's different notes that we're singing, there's different rhythms and speeds, there's times when we pause. And so what you want to do is you want to take out your poem and start breaking it down. The first thing we look for as an actor when you have a script is you highlight your operative words. And these are the words that have the most important meaning, the weight. And so once again, you don't want to give every word weight. You just pick out, I have a line from The Battle Hymn of the Republic by Julia Ward Howe. And this is my interpretation. If this was my script, The great thing about acting is that a million different actors will approach the script a million different ways. So maybe you, if you were approaching this, you would want to highlight coming. That's fine. There's no wrong answer. But these are three words that I picked out: eyes, glory, and Lord. And so if I were reading this and I have it highlighted, if I hadn't picked up this piece in a long time, I don't have to really think about it. I just know those are the words that I'm going to give a little extra oomph. Now, I've done this before with middle school students or high school students who are resistant, and they, for whatever reason, can't hear how it is that you are punching these words differently. And so I've had students like stand up and actually stomp on those words, mine eyes, until they get it into their body. You can punch with your hands, but it really is just giving something extra in the diaphragm and with the voice. So mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. And I'm just giving them a little extra oomph. And if you rehearse doing it over the top, and then when you go through it just as a normal human being, you'll see that it becomes like second nature, just giving these words just a little bit of extra emphasis. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. But I do recommend rehearsing doing it over the top. So you want to avoid highlighting personal pronouns, because in natural speech, we don't really, so an example is the I have a dream speech. Martin Luther King doesn't really hit I have a dream, I have a dream. He's hitting dream, I have a dream. And human beings, we normally don't emphasize a personal pronoun unless we are correcting. No, not your dream, my dream. And so if there is an opportunity where it's like, no, the meaning is, I really do want to emphasize mine because mine is different than yours. I'm clarifying. So if we go back to mine eyes, if someone said, have you read that poem that's like thine eyes have seen? No, not thine, mine eyes have seen the glory. That might be a point when, as a human being, I would correct it and really emphasize mine. So avoid personal pronouns unless you were specifying, no, not your dream, my dream, or I have a dream. And so I used to call this workshop the difference between Captain Kirk and Captain Picard, because William Shatner had this way of acting that seemed kind of random with his pauses, and it almost seemed like he really wasn't sure what he was going to say next. And if you hear like the beginning of Star Trek from his days, it's really space, the final frontier. It's very random what he emphasizes. And then when you hear Picard, who was, Shakespeare, it was the Royal Shakespeare Theater. So he's a trained actor. He has that gravitas, and he hits all of the words that are really. So the biggest difference is Shatner says to boldly go where no man has gone before, and Picard is to boldly go where no one, I think they changed it, no one has gone before. But it's that go that when he hits it, you know that it's like a challenge. And so when we have time, I've done this workshop where it can last an hour and a half. I ask everyone to go through and to highlight the operative words. We don't have time for that, so you can pause right now and you can try it out. And would you highlight space? Would you highlight final? Would you highlight frontier? These are actor choices, but as long as you have really thought about it and thought about how you're going to express meaning. And it really is when you know what you're saying, that's what makes it sound like conversation and really breaks it up from being monotone. So this is an example of, is it Elizabeth Barrett Browning? I didn't credit her. How do I love thee, let me count the ways. I really don't remember whose poem this is. I'm guessing, but it's a famous poem. And so I went through and I highlighted, these are my operative words. And then I have some lists here. And where there are lists, I have like this arrow with this line specifically. I have depth. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height. And so these are all really important words, and I could give them the same weight. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach. But when you have steps, especially when you have a poem with long lists and every word is important, that can become monotone unless you look at them as steps. Maybe with this, I put an arrow, I marked it with an arrow pointing up, like I'm going to ascend steps. So I would read it as, I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach. So you can hear how I'm climbing those steps, and you can make the choice to, at some point, if it's a long list, climb and then descend those steps. I gave the example at the very last line here, most quiet by sun and candlelight. And so sun and candlelight, it's a little list. It's not a long list. But I would descend when I'm looking at which is bigger. The sun is huge, and then there's candlelight. So this, if this were a list, I would start out with the sun and candlelight, and then something smaller if the list went on. But actually, the list it's really just two things: by sun and candlelight. I hope you could hear that I'm descending those steps. But what's happening specifically here is these two things are opposites. It's antithesis. So whenever you have images that are in opposition of each other, you definitely want to point those out. And you could do that with a gesture, by sun and candlelight, something big and grand to something small and immediate. You could do it just with your voice, as I did. But this is an opportunity where you could add gesture. Next step is antithesis, contrasting images, any interesting juxtapositions. And this is, I actually put the credit in here because I could not stop for death, Emily Dickinson. It begins with these two characters at odds, death and me. And that is an example that you really want to somehow vocally or visually point out these two are in opposition. So you could do it just with vocally. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. So I'm emphasizing death and me. But to show that they're at opposites, you might want to like put one up here and one down here, one to my right, one to my left with gesture. But then this is where we also get into rhythm and speed. When you think of someone who cannot stop for death, they are busy. It's that person who is on the go. I have board meeting after board meeting, and then I got to do this and this and that. And so I personally might speed it up. And then you have a great opportunity for a pause and to show how languid, how death can take their time, because death has eternity. So because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. It's another way that you can vocally show the differences between these two characters, death and me. And that takes us to our next slide, which is rhythm and speed. So you're looking at your poem as though it is your script, and you're going to highlight your operative words. You're going to find if there is any antithesis or these interesting juxtapositions of this and that that are in opposition. You want to mark your script for rhythm and speed, and you need to find a place where you can slow down and really have measured words. And then another area that you can maybe move through quickly. Now, you never want to speak too quickly to the point that you are not understood, but you do want to try to find places where you can vary that speed. Also, mark anywhere where you feel like there could be a pause. Like for the last example, because I could not stop for death, and you're talking about not being able to stop, there needs to be a pause there. So, and the way that you mark your script is really, there's no right or there's no right or wrong, whatever works for you. If you want to write a P for pause or a slash, or in music, if you're looking at your script like a piece of music, sometimes they have commas as a breath. So in putting together this PowerPoint, they had different little emojis. And so this is for rhythm and speed. I put the turtle and the hare, so that I put it, so centuries is the word that I'm going to hit, but I'm gonna begin slowing down at the beginning of the line. So that's where I put the turtle to know slow. And this is the last stanza of Because I Could Not Stop for Death by Dickinson. Since then 'tis centuries, but each feels shorter than a day. So that's an opportunity to, once again, show that, highlight the antithesis by rhythm and speed. The first line is slow, and then I'm going to make the next line a little bit faster. And this also breaks up monotone, because as humans, sometimes we're speaking slowly, and sometimes we just get so excited we speak a little faster. And then I have the other words that I have highlighted. Eternity, it seems like that's just a great example for being slow as you want to be. I first surmised the horses' heads were towards eternity. You can drag it out and really feel it in your mouth. Oh, this is like I've never met a student who likes an O. In Shakespeare, if there's an O, that's got to be a sound. It's not just oh Romeo. It's got to be oh. It's something in you. This no words are good enough for an O. It's a feeling. So don't rush over an O. Drag that out. So vocal dynamics and physical gestures, like rhythm and speed, and you need to think about volume. And all of this comes from voice classes. So I've taken voice as an actor, but then also voice as a singer. And any great singer, they approach a song and they're gonna have, think of Celine Dion, a softer part of the song and then a loud part of the song. Because if the whole thing is loud, it does become monotone. Think about, and I love punk, but a punk can be like, I'm gonna kick every word of the song. And that becomes like, to the point that you almost don't hear the words anymore. So think of someone who's dynamic like Celine Dion, who has a very, very soft part of the song. And by the end of it, she's roaring. Look at your script, see if you can designate where can I be loudest and where can I be softest. And keep in mind that the most complex music usually runs the gamut of, there is that change from loud to soft. And then, as any other great singer, you want to designate places where you can gesture to help illustrate a point. Now, what you don't want to do is start like acting out every line. You don't need a gesture for every line because then all of a sudden you're a mime. But maybe begin with locating 3 per song, and then it'll just make sense. I really should move. I should take a step. I should, if you're sharing with the audience, get a little closer because this is a secret. And find those places where you can move. If you have restricted space, if you have unrestricted space, you can take steps. You can broaden that, but at least 3 places where you're going to gesture so that you're not just standing there saying your poem. Objectives and tactives. If you have a poem that is in first person, this is basically, it is much like a monologue. So what actors do is for every sentence, you try to find out, why am I saying this? You're saying a sentence to try to gain something. So maybe it is to seduce by flirting, to win by lying, to mourn by praying. Try to figure out, if you can, an objective. My objective is to win. And how am I going to win? Maybe by arguing. That is your tactic. Actors do that for every line in a monologue. If you can't, then you can at least break it down to a stanza. I'm saying the first stanza to convince by arguing. So then you can, that's something you can do. You can put yourself into the mind of a great arguer, a great lawyer. And at some point, usually in a monologue, in a first person speech, there is a change of tactics. That's not working, so I'm gonna do this instead. See if you can identify that at the very least for each stanza. And I'm rushing over these. If you need to at any point pause and look at your script and do this, I recommend doing it. And out loud. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. You have to rehearse out loud because if you are performing a poem, it is a vocal art. So you want to be bigger and louder in rehearsal than you feel that you need to be on stage. Because I guarantee you, once you're on stage, you're going to get nervous and you're going to pull back a little. So if you didn't practice and you think you're going to be out here and then you get nervous, you're going to be down here. But if you practice up here and then you get nervous, you're still going to be high energy. You're going to pull back a little, but you will still be high energy. I hate to work with people who say, I'll do it on stage. There's no guarantee unless you know that you've done it 100%, where you felt everything that you wanted to feel off stage. It will never happen on stage. Do not save your energy for the real thing. You have to rehearse every time as if it is the real thing. And I do this in my shower. Maybe you don't have the luxury of a room to yourself. I've done poetry when hiking. I've done it on a boat in the middle of the lake. The shower is a place where you could at least feel like no one can hear me, even if they can hear you. You have to tune them out and you have to really commit 100%. So let me check my time. How are we doing? We're going to rush through these other slides. Warm up is very important. If you are going to be rehearsing out loud, you have your space. You want to begin with a body warm up. And what I normally do is check in with every part of my body that can rotate. Usually beginning with from the floor down, my ankles, your ankle rotated to the right, rotated to the left, the other ankle to the right and the left. At the knees, everywhere where we have a joint, I'm going to rotate my leg to the right, rotate it to the left. I'm rushing through this, but both legs. And then you have these right here where your leg goes into your hip, and we do hip openers. I do this with middle school kids, and we usually take more time. And then they always say around town. Is that a SpongeBob thing? I don't really know, but they always say that whenever we do our hips, like you're doing a hula hoop. And then your arms, you have these big muscles in your arms, backwards, forwards, and then same thing with anything that moves. And then you have wrists, right? So the very last thing, and you want to take care, never throw your head around. I have before, and I hurt my neck. So you don't want to play around with your spinal cord and your neck. Your chin to your chest and slowly roll around. When you are warming up, if you feel that anything hurts, that's a sign that you need to take care of that spot. If you hit your elbow while playing tennis, then you're going to keep that in mind, and you're not going to do anything crazy to re-injure that spot. So we're checking in with our body. And then once we have checked in with every joint in our body, one of my students I usually do, and I'm doing it sitting down, make your body as big as you can, including your face. Make your body as small as you can. So you're tensing up, and then you're stretching. You're tensing up and stretching. And then we do the same thing with our face. And yes, this is gonna feel foolish. You have to block out anyone else. Do it in the bathroom. Face big, face small. Face big, face small. When you squinch your face up, you should feel that like tension, because you're like really stretching and loosening up the muscles. Stretch the facial muscles. I have my students chew an invisible piece of gum that is just very giant. And that begins to loosen up your jaw. Yawn, that loosens up the jaw. Raspberry lips. And then we add a tone. And the tone is as high as you can personally get and as low as you can personally get. And yes, this is all very silly, but if you're dedicated, you get used to doing silly things. All right. Once we've done this, we go into some sort of vocal warm-up. And there are a million I could go into, but I just have a list of tongue twisters. With tongue twisters, you have to move. Now, when you see like some of your favorite rappers, they are never just standing there. So I have the first tongue twister, girl gargoyle. If I do it very stiffly, girl gargoyle, guy gargoyle, see, it's hard. But if you move as though you're a rapper, girl gargoyle, guy gargoyle, girl gargoyle, guy gargoyle, girl gargoyle, it's just easier when you move. So in your script, in your poem, if you've identified a line, I always get my tongue tied on this line. You need to move on that line. Girl gargoyle, guy gargoyle, girl gargoyle, guy gargoyle. 11 benevolent elephants, 11 benevolent elephants. I start slow and then try to speed up the tongue twister as fast as I can without losing meaning. At the second that you lose meaning, it's no good. You need to like hold on to meaning if you're communicating as an actor. Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. All right, you've done your vocal warm-ups, and then you rehearse your piece out loud. These are some other last minute tips. Take care of your body. It is your instrument. Exercise. In the imaginary world of Amalia, I exercise so that I am always ready to do a 50-minute one-woman show. Am I currently doing a 50-minute one-woman show? No, but I want to exercise as though I'm ready for, if they want to call me up and cast me, I'm ready. I never want to get a part and be like, ooh, I got to get in shape for that. I am in shape for that. And so you need to have that breath support. If you find you're going through a poem and you're losing, I have to catch my breath, I actually run and sing to try to make sure I have proper breath support. It's like, if I could sing while I run, I know I could stand on stage and do a poem. Don't smoke. If you care about your voice, don't even start. It will dry out your voice and cause all kinds of other problems. What you eat before you perform will affect your performance. No heavy meals. Fettuccine Alfredo will make you sleepy. Don't do that. I personally have no dairy before performing because it creates phlegm. So if you're eating cheese or drinking milk or eating cheese strips, like I don't, yeah, don't do it. I actually at a national performance was not ready to perform and had a whole bunch of cheese, and there's still a video out there where I clear my throat on the very last sentence of the poem. It will never happen to me again. So if you did, all there was to eat was pizza and you have phlegm in your throat, you have to eat hard food, apples, pears, raw veggies. I carry an apple with me in case someone says, do a poem now, and I just had cheese sticks. I need to eat an apple first. And that will really, any hard food, even nuts, but then you have nuts in your teeth. I don't recommend nuts, but hard foods clear out the phlegm. And then don't OD on caffeine, corn syrup. Don't drink 3 Dr. Peppers just to get hyped up. Natural sugar comes from fruit, and that will give you a boost if you are feeling lethargic and down. But you have to take care of yourself and put in the work. Put in some time to rehearse. And these are my last words of advice. If you don't take your own voice seriously, don't expect anyone else to. So at the very least, if you've done all this work and you feel like you could deliver a poem that you're proud of, I think you will feel the difference between that time when you just kind of winged it and maybe felt a little bit like William Shatner. But I do love William Shatner. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, Amalia. That was really wonderful. I really like that you mentioned that people could kind of stop if the video if they want to, and maybe rewind or you know, take some time to actually explore some of these exercises. I think that'd be really great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I do feel like I was talking very quickly. I hope I was still understood. But yeah, definitely when I've done this workshop with human beings in person, we try these exercises and you mark your script. And these are exercises that I saw in like a voice class. When you're singing, you have to mark dynamics and choose 3 gestures and choose where you're going to get loud and soft. So definitely try all of these. I'm really hoping that it will help you.
Well, thanks again. And thank you for watching this video. We hope you'll watch the rest of the videos in the series. If you or your school are interested in participating in the next Poetry Out Loud competition, please contact us at poetryoutloud@arts.texas.gov. Have a great day.